You're watching the Metaphysical Mentor podcast with Michael Philpott. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. This is the Metaphysical Mentor podcast with me, Michael Philpott, and I'm pretty excited today. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. I always say that we're going to stay on to one topic, and then we move on to 16 different topics in the conversation. But we're going to talk a little bit about hypnosis, and we're maybe talking about psychic mediumship. I know everybody loves that. We may just get onto psychic mediumship, and that might be the whole show. But we may go off on a few other tangents too as well. But I'm really excited, and I'm really excited that the fact that I saw your post with Cheryl Kraft, and I have to thank Cheryl for connecting us. I love that woman. She's a real superstar. Big fan of hers, and that's Cheryl Kraft of Opie's Connection. A little shout out to you, Cheryl. And one of the things I found was so powerful is when your interview, you guys talked about how basically she said you saved her life in some ways.
Yes, that's right. So in this work, Michael, quite often we go through profound transformations where people are in dire need, they're going through intense situations, and they're looking for assistance to make it through. And I was really quite blown away by Miss Cheryl there. It is a huge compliment. I really am taken aback when people tell me that I saved their life. I've heard it multiple times in my career. And every time I am humbled, every time I just look at the situation and say, what? How could I possibly have affected this person in such a deep way?
Yeah.
So I absolutely love it, and it is quite a humbling experience.
Yeah, it really is. You know, doing this type of work, we really never know, like depending on if they're just coming for a reading, because you do psychic readings too, as well as hypnotherapy. And after they leave, or either they have a reading or a session with hypnotherapy, you really never know what happens to them afterwards. And so it's always curious. And I always love those testimonials that you get. And I'm always a big fan of getting testimonials because it gives me an idea that, okay, the work that I'm doing is profound. Things are happening and they're changing their lives. And I just like, okay, it's like, wow, it really did impact that person. Because I don't know about you, but once in a while you get a little bit of doubt in your head. And it's like, did I actually just help this person? Or did they actually, really, that information actually sink in? Did they really get that information that they've been, desperate for? Because like you said, they're just desperate times. They're coming to us usually at their lowest. And they're just looking for guidance and they want that type of help. So I always just think it's so invaluable. And when I hear like Cheryl say that, I was like, okay, that was another reason. I was like, okay, I got to have you on the show. We got to talk about this stuff because I think it's really important. Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you, you're a hypnotherapist and a psychic medium. Now, were you a hypnotherapist first, then your psychic abilities opened up, or were you more psychic first and then it's like, I'm going to throw hypnotherapy as something extra?
Great question, Michael. So I've been intuitive through life, which I didn't really understand, being raised atheist. So I had absolutely no spiritual background. I came in on a blank canvas, really skeptical, but I happen to have a knowing, and I would learn things from non-physical people. And it really caused me a lot of troubles earlier in life, really. So I have this innate ability, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it was called. I didn't have vocabulary for it. I didn't have the language to explain the process that took place inside of me. So fast forward in time, and I always have been intrigued with Edgar Cayce. I thought, wow, yes, that man is amazing, Michael. And I was reading his, yes, sir, right there. Absolutely. So Edgar Cayce is my inspiration. He is why I do what I do.
I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you, but that's the same bloody reason I do my job. It's been so influential. So obviously there's another reason. I think he's on the other side going, okay, I think these two need to talk to each other. But yeah, 100%. He's the biggest influence of my psychic abilities. And he's been a big influence ever since.
Yes, an amazing individual. So I knew that I was supposed to do something, and they always say, do what you love. And I go, I don't know what that is. All I'm doing is researching the mind and researching Edgar Cayce and researching consciousness. And one day, Michael, it was like, I'm meant to be a hypnotist. I knew it. I said, if Edgar can become hypnotized and help people, what if I can learn to hypnotize people and they can help themselves?
Wow.
So that was really my launching point into the education of hypnotherapy.
Wow.
So it was really rich in this vein of servitude and learning the expansion of consciousness and how to connect with that information. And as I went through hypnotherapy school, it was a wonderful process. It was like being at Hogwarts. And it was really fantastic. I was at school for a year,
Oh,
in and
wow.
out
Really
of.
that long? Wow.
Yes. So I even moved to Los Angeles, California, just to get this education in hypnotherapy. It's a 1-year-long accredited college of clinical hypnotherapy. So it's an in-depth program. And so I was in hypnosis 5 days a week. I was going through learning about hypnosis, being in hypnosis. And what happened is, through that process, Michael, the development, the unfoldment of intuition came to fruition. In and
Wow.
out of that state of consciousness, it really started expanding my natural born abilities that I didn't truly understand. So it really molded together to give me something to really understand the mind and understand how consciousness is working and understanding how you can use it to serve others, and also how you can develop it for your own needs too.
Yeah, I mean, hypnosis therapy could be so profound for so many people. I've had several sessions with hypnotherapy, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it's interesting enough. I'm glad you're on, because I was actually almost thinking of taking a course myself, just to because I love the idea of hypnotherapy, but I was more for myself because I wanted to explore that deep. Because I know I'm intuitive. Like, how intuitive could I go? Could I actually do like Edgar Cayce, go into at a trance state, hypnotize myself, connect to the superconscious, connect to the Akashic records, and give the most detailed information that it is humanly possible for the individual? Because I just find his work so fascinating, so detailed, especially the medical stuff, which was just fantastic. And I was always curious, how did you connect with Edgar Cayce? Like, a lot of people, it's either like their parents kind of knew about him or something, along those lines, where you're in a bookstore and one of his books pop out. How did you get to know who Edgar Cayce was?
I can't even recall. I don't even recall. It wasn't from a person. I learned through firsthand experience on my own. So I can't really recall how I found Edgar. What I do remember is, even going back to when I was quite young, studying the mind and studying consciousness, and I would go to the library and pick out a book and learn about it, and he must have been one of those books. Somehow his book came to me.
Yeah.
Somehow there it was, and I was enraptured in learning and really fascinated, much like yourself, about using this state to really gain valuable information.
Yeah, it is really a great tool to use. And, I highly recommend anybody who's going through stuff to try to, or take some sessions, and really see it yourself. And even if, for a lot of people, they say they can't get hypnotized, there's always a benefit to it too, as well. Have you found in your practice that, there's just some people that just don't react to hypnotherapy?
It depends. Some people, I find the number one challenge is fear, where they're really afraid with the loss of control. And so they get a little bit panicky, and it can block the process, because you really think about hypnosis very much like taking a nap. You can't force a person to take a nap if they truly don't want to. But if they're willing and allow themselves to rest, calm, and relax, they can have an enjoyable experience. So I really think a lot of it has to do with the person and their goal. So through my process, very rarely is there somebody so scared that they won't allow themselves at least some sort of relaxation, some
Yeah.
sort of involvement in the process to shift these things they want to change so badly about themselves.
Yeah, and I think that's the point too, as well, is that they really, when they come to you, they're looking for help. So they're
Yeah.
willing to spend time with you. They're willing to spend money to make this investment in their health. So most times I figure that they're willing to, if you say, this is what you got to do, okay, I'm going to do it. And I'm one of those people. It's like, all right, I'm investing money in this. I want to get healthy. I want to get healed. Yeah, I'm going all in. I don't. Yeah, I'm not going to lose my fear. I'm going to lose my fear, I should say, and just go in with an open book and see what happens. And I kind of like to experiment. I've tried different therapies around the line, and some work, some haven't, but I love the experiment of learning about myself and what I'm capable of doing and what happens. Cause I'm always curious. It's like, okay, am I going to go into trance? Am I going to go, this is going to happen? Am I going to feel better? Like you think about it, like how many different things that people go to hypnosis for. Like usually it's what, smoking, eating, like kind of the bad habits that we have, or so-called bad habits.
Behavior modification. So any kind of behavior that bothers you that you want to change, whether it's nail biting, overeating, anxiety, depression, there's so many different things you can use hypnosis for. Quite often in my work, Michael, people often come to me for some sort of spiritual connection using the tool of hypnosis too. So one of my favorite things to do that is really profound and lovely is if a person is grieving and they're missing their loved one, they can enter the state of hypnosis, go to the other side and connect with their loved one. And so, yes, you can go to a medium who can relay messages, or you can do it yourself. And I love helping people get in that state where they have an intimate one-on-one connection with their spirit person on the other side.
Wow. That's profound, because I love when, because even when even in your website, you talk about empowering people. And that's what I love. I love people who empower other people, like to make themselves, like you're investing in themselves, not really in yourself, but you're investing in that. And I love that kind of quote. I think the most influential person is yourself. And I love that quote that you put in your website there. And I think that's really important, is investing in yourself and knowing who you are. And I think that's the big thing is that, and I think that's really fantastic. So grief, I've never heard about that. And like the idea of, obviously I'm a medium too. So, I mean, I've had those instances when people come to me looking for guidance and talk to me. And it's nice because if you can actually give them, because that's what they really want, is they want that intimate reconnecting, I guess, of that lost loved one to help resolve any issues, or just want to, just to have that connection again. But the fact that you take them into that state, which is so cool, and then they can have their own profound conversation with the person on the other side. You really don't need the medium, but you know what? You're going to put a lot of us out of work there.
You know what? The better we are, the better everybody is. So this is my goal, Michael, so that I'm not needed.
Yeah. You know what? I do that a lot, because that's how my focus on my readings are. Because people always say, so when do I got to come back? And I said, like, maybe in a year, maybe in a year or something like that. Like it's not a repeat business. Like I do coaching, if they need coaching and stuff like that, intuitive coaching. But for the most part, here's the information. It's jam-packed. You got an hour. We're putting all this information in here. And I want you to go and use these tools, use what you've learned. Here's the suggestions, and start working on that. You don't need to see me, every couple months, and I always hate when I hear people like other psychics, and I hear that from several of my clients, especially in the beginning, like, I was going to the psychic every month or so. And it's like, what? You don't need to go to that person every month. It's just, they're telling the same thing over and over again. And some are just taking advantage of that. And I really hate that. It's like, I'm like the worst person, trying to get repeat business. Like, no, you only need about once. If you want some coaching, great. But here's the information, here's the empowerment, and go for it, but I don't know about you, but I find so many people are just they're opening up their gifts. I don't know if you've noticed that lately. I've
Yes.
had some like crazy, I mean, people with like, I thought I have, I'm going to admit I had a little bit of skill. I got a little skill in the psyche department, but I've been meeting people who are just like super freaks. Absolutely love them. They got some crazy gifts. They don't even know what's going on. And I'm going,
Yeah.
are you serious? Do you know what you're doing? No, I don't know. And it's like, girlfriend, like that is like super freak stuff. Like that's like, I'm like, Edgar Cayce type stuff. And they go, who's that guy? And then I have to tell them who Edgar Cayce is. And I was like, all right, this is the book you need to read. But are you finding that out with a lot of the clients you're seeing now?
Yes, a lot of people are confused, Michael. They don't know what's going on, So a lot of people are kind of freaking out. They're stressed. They have anxiety. They're knowing things. They're feeling things. Their body is responding to intuition, and they are getting rather confused sometimes as they're not really sure what's happening. And then they get in that flow, and they start riding that slipstream, and things just start going. So
Yeah.
I love that. I love watching people learn how to connect with themselves, because truly it's just about turning inward and upward. And more people are doing that and finding their own connection to source and receiving their own guidance as well.
Yeah. That's so amazing. Now, when you have a client come in for hypnosis, does your intuitive self already kick in already? It's like, okay, even though a client may say, I want help with XYZ, and then your intuitive self goes, no, it's ABC that we need to start with. And
Mhm.
your intuitive self kind of guides them already, and you're already in action mode to help them in their hypnotherapy. Does that sometimes how it works with you?
Sometimes, but I'm not a peeping Tom. So I, yeah, I only with permission.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
So I'm very respectful, because some of my clientele doesn't want anything to do with any kind of psychic work, and I deeply respect that and honor that as we move in a different circle that is something more comfortable for them. So I make sure I'm very cognizant of where they are and what they're most comfortable with. And I try not to force my own agenda, even if I have an idea about it. So usually I would have some sort of investigation going on, and I have an idea of what it might be. And then I try to allow them to really step forward and help talk to me about it and fill me in on the process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's it. So yeah. I know. I wasn't meaning like you were peeping Tom like that. I mean, I know a lot of people would get a little worried that because you do that, they're gonna like, oh my God, is she gonna tune into something that I don't want them to see? And it's like, but you have those boundaries because you're a professional, right? You mean this is one thing, and you separate from the other thing. That's the same thing what I do. It's like you separate one. This is what I do, but also I have this too as well. I don't combine them together. It's either one or the other. And I think that's really important that people understand that if they're coming for a hypnotherapy, they're coming for an in-depth, clinical experience that's going to help them move forward in their life and their journey and start them on the healing process. So one of the things I saw in your biography that you went to a Sylvia Browne School of Hypnosis.
I did.
Now, for people who don't know who Sylvia Browne is, now we have a lot of young listeners.
Mm-hmm.
So if maybe we can tell them who Sylvia Browne is, I think that people will get a better understanding of what your school was all about.
Okay, so she was a well-known psychic in America, and she was on a daytime talk show for many years, and she was in the news, and she was doing things, and she wrote a lot of books. So she was pretty much one of America's most well-known psychics that was working.
Yeah.
And so she had quite an impact on people. And so that's how I kicked off my education, as I went to a 10-day intensive course about spiritual hypnosis. And at the time, Michael, I didn't believe in past lives. I didn't believe in hypnosis really, because I'm a huge skeptic. So I need to see it work. And so I entered very naive, very unbelieving of the processes, and it was a wonderful experience. There was about 16 people in class, 3 teachers, 10 days, And it was a really beautiful experience to go through and learn about past life regression, to experience it, to feel it, to live it, and to go through such an amazing process. And at the end of that class, they said, if you really are interested in hypnotherapy and hypnosis, 10 days is not even close enough. It's
Wow.
not even near close enough to understanding what's going on. You need to advance your education. And so that's what I did. I researched schools around the country, and I wanted the best. If you're going to learn, learn from the best, so you don't have
Exactly.
to relearn. And I studied the schools available, and I chose the top school, and I invested myself into going to that school to expand my education and get just as much as I possibly could about hypnosis.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I thought that was so cool. And I thought, Sylvia Brown, I've heard that name in so long. So for those, I mean, I think it was Montel Williams. Now I'm dating myself because I remember that, because I look back at my own beginning of spirituality, and I look back at I like to call them the OGs of spirituality and psychic stuff. And Sylvia Brown was up there back in the late 90s. Even maybe a little earlier, she was writing books and doing stuff. So she's always on those talk shows. I just remember she had that kind of rough voice, and it's like, hey, it's just like, you're not expecting this, right? But I remember her books, and then there was, obviously there was Doreen Virtue at the time, and then John Edward, and then there's like Deepak Chopra, and then there was Wayne Dyer. They're all kind of seem to be in that same kind of loop, and then Louise
Yes.
Hay area. Back in the days. Listen to this,
Yes.
like back in the days.
Yes.
But yeah, it was absolutely fantastic to see that, development, that work, because I know even though people, came for her for psychic readings, she did a lot of past life regression stuff, which I was really surprised. When I was reading one of her books, I'm going, why would anybody go back and past life regression? Do you find some people now, even my own experience, when I went into hypnotherapy, the first session I went into, I was hoping to get some, behavioral challenges and things changed. And I went into a past life, and I'm sitting there, and I was kind of pissed a bit because I wasn't what I wanted. But all of a sudden I just remember going relaxing, and then zoop, I'm seeing all these imagery of this kind of Westerny type town and all this sort of stuff. And I'm going, what the frick is this? And I'm just going, so what are you seeing? And I'm saying, well, I'm seeing like this old town, and I'm like trying to explain this. And and part of my brain, I'm into that state, I'm watching this, but in my brain's going, this is bullshit, because I was like going, what the deal is this going on? Like, what? I have no recollection of this. And then all of a sudden she goes, I think you're having a past life regression. I'm going, and then she was explaining to me, it's like, okay, this is what's going on. This is where the emotion's coming through. This is what some of the things that may be affecting you in this lifetime. And then the light bulb hit on. And it's like, that makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Do you find that when people ask, no, do you recommend past life regressions, or is this something that is just something that if somebody wanted to explore past life regression, they come to you to as well?
I think everybody should have a past life regression. If they did, there would be no racism. There would be no issues with other people in the way they live. So I find that past life regression is a very valuable tool. And some people even recommend a past life regression before behavior modification hypnosis. Because as you found out, you can go right to the source, Michael, right to where it started, right to the origin, and have an understanding of why you're doing it and how to shift it and how to change it. So quite often, past life regression does offer healing that is very, very quick, sometimes instantaneous.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of that, and I've done research on that too as well. It's so profound. Like, they talk about the space-time continuum and quantum physics and timelines and all this sort of stuff, and how integrated conscious memory and stuff like that is affecting us, and obviously karma and all those different things, and how that information could still be imprinted on the body that's still affecting us today. When I heard that and I saw that, it's like that light bulb, like I said, it was that light bulb. It was like, oh my God, that's why I'm so angry. Why am I so angry? I couldn't figure it out. And then I was like, okay, now I can kind of see it. But then part of it too, as well, it's like, now I can see the patterns. I started seeing patterns in my life. And that was kind of the most illuminating thing. It's like, okay, that's why this is happening. And then more light bulbs start going off. And then I was like, okay, this is a little overwhelming because I'm getting too many light bulbs going off at the same time. So I had to kind of, work it through it. But do you find that when somebody has that profound moment, in your office or, through Zoom, like we're doing here, that you have that profound moment and it's all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, this is what's happening. I see this whole pattern for the rest of my life.
Yes, the aha moment. Yes. So I love the aha moment when people say, wow, I get it. I understand what's happening. I understand my behaviors. I understand where this came from. And so it does happen. That's really what I shoot for with hypnosis, is to really help people have that awareness. It is the expansion of consciousness. It is the awareness of self. So it's a way to introduce people to themselves. And once you can you're a third-party observer to your previous lifetime, you can sit back and watch it and review it and look at the patterns and look at the repeat players and look at the repeat themes that come through time and time again. So it really is a valuable tool to help people gain understanding of self.
Yeah, I think it's just, I think that's really the quintessential thing about hypnosis. You really start learning about yourself and what's going on with you. So what actually happens during the state of hypnosis? So somebody's listening to this and they're interested in hypnosis. So what actually happens to the individual when they go into hypnosis? Kind of explain the process of how they go into it.
Okay, so it's a very normal, natural state. So it is very much, I think of it like shifting gears in the brain. It really is shifting to a different way of function. And so we have beta, alpha, theta, and delta brainwaves. So beta is right now, we're alert, we're awake, we're paying attention. As soon as you kind of slip off into a dream state, imagine like you're driving down the road and your brain just kind of wanders off and you're not sure if you passed your turn or not. That's the state of alpha. That's also where meditation occurs in a lighter state of hypnosis. And as you go deeper into that state of awareness, you enter theta, and that is where hypnosis occurs. And an even deeper state is called delta, and that's where the amnesia occurs with some people when they experience the state of hypnosis. And so what's interesting, Michael, is these states are very similar to every state you go through when you fall asleep at night. You transition through the state of hypnosis every single day. Every day, people transition through the state of hypnosis on their way to sleep, which is why it's very important about what information you're putting in your head before you go to bed. Are you listening to the news? Are you listening to some fear-based rhetoric? Or do you have a toxic partner telling you something negative about yourself? Because those things can absolutely become a hypnotic suggestion. And if it takes root, you can actually accidentally hypnotize yourself into having these challenges that are totally unnecessary. So it is, yes, hypersuggestibility. So the very cool part is, if you know how to use hypnosis, you go in and out on a regular basis, or you know how to operate this mechanism, it makes you less suggestible to other people. Because you enter hypnosis with intention and permission, and it can really help strengthen your mind and keep you less susceptible to unwanted hypnotic suggestions.
So that's why literally when they talk about TV, it's programming. They're actually programming because you're almost in a state of hypnosis watching television or programming.
Absolutely. Flashing lights, big sounds, and it's constantly, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this. And then the programming, whatever that narrative is. Yeah, so you really should be aware of what you're consuming, what you're putting into your brain, what are you absorbing into your aura, into your energy field. Wow. It's very, very important to be selective on what you ingest.
Wow, I think that's really, because a lot of times we just don't realize that we're doing. We come home from work, you just sit in front of the TV and you realize that there's this information that's being downloaded and you're just causing more fear state, especially in the news and all these, depending on, it's such crazy. Things are, I see now more openly what you can just, it's so blatantly the programming and these ideologies that are coming out these days. And I'm just like, how is this even normal? Like, what are they trying to do? But I people are starting to realize they can kind of see the bullshit before we were like asleep.
Yes.
Like you said, we're basically hypnotized into believing a lot of this stuff. And I think a lot of people who are now, like you're saying, are confused and things like that are coming out because they're starting to become awake. But I love that idea about making sure you pay attention to what you watch before you go to bed. Because I've had that situation where I'd be watching, some crazy action film, and then I'll have just this crazy action filled nightmare for some reason. And I was like, what the hell just happened there? And then I realized it's the same information that I was watching there. My subconscious mind was using that as a way to whatever alleviate something that's going on in my life. And I was like, okay, that's really crazy. But I try to make sure I shut off and I read a little bit, something interesting before I go to bed. So, wow, I really got to pay attention to that.
Yes, we all do.
Yeah. Now with hypnosis, is there one particular thing that most people come to see you for, or is there just several different things?
Several different things. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of different things. So grief, depression, anxiety, things that bother you. So anything that's really annoying, anything bothersome, anything that a person is trying to change about themselves, but they just haven't been able to do it on their own yet. Those kind of things.
Okay.
An advancement tool. It's a tool of self-improvement.
Yeah. Now, can you learn to hypnotize yourself?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, and this is something I love to teach, is how people can use the tool of hypnosis by themselves. So self-hypnosis is a wonderful tool. It's something that I use myself. And really, with every person that I work with for addictions, they learn what's called a hypnotic anchor, which is a tool of self-hypnosis, where they can use their hypnotic anchor to instantly bypass any thoughts, urges, or cravings for that substance. So they use these tools of self-hypnosis with aftercare, and they don't even need me. They can continue to use these tools and help themselves stay addiction-free, even without my assistance.
Wow, that's really profound because addictions are so hard. I've been trying to get off a coffee addiction right now myself, and it's one of the toughest things. I really don't drink anymore. I don't eat a lot of red meat and stuff like that, and my lifestyle has totally changed over the years. But I just find with addictions, I know it can be so difficult. I just had a lady on the show, and she talked about her opioid addiction and how she got hooked on that because of her physician, and how she got off that. And I thought, Jesus, what a rough road, especially for addictions, because there's just that little, trigger or something that happens that could send them down the rabbit hole again into their addictions. And it could be just anything like gambling, TV, even drama is an addiction. Like people get stuck in their dramas and they don't know how to get out of drama. Like, do you see a lot of that too as well?
Yes, I've seen people addicted to suffering, people addicted to their own pain.
Wow.
Yes. So it's very, very interesting. And when we work with addictions, such as your coffee addiction, you have to make changes so that your brain is doing something different. So you might even want to rearrange where your coffee maker is in the kitchen. Change it.
I don't even have one. I don't even have one. Like right now, my thing is that I don't buy coffee now. So that was one of the things that I just get it out of the house. So I don't have it there. And, there's a couple of days where I go without it. And then, I got to get back into the routine, and it's very much routine. Like when I'm sitting in front of this computer editing, when I'm editing, it's kind of like my brain needs to get refocused. Because to be honest with you, I love doing this part, but the editing part afterwards, I wish I could pay somebody to do that, but I got to sit there and sit in front of the computer and edit. And I've never been sitting in front of a computer type guy anyways. That's just not my nature. Like I have to be doing something. So I do work on that. But it's funny because I didn't have a coffee in the morning, and then it's like, I'm kind of getting ready for the show. I'm getting things organized. And then automatically my brain kind of goes, just get a coffee. And I was like, and it's like, I tried to stop myself, but then it was just like, it was already on automatic pilot, and there's a little coffee store just down underneath my building. So I go downstairs, but I thought, I'm just going to have an espresso. I'm just going to have a quick little espresso and that's it. I won't have a big cup of coffee. And it's like, okay, I'm done for the day. But it's amazing how those little addictions kind of just creep up on you. But I know I'm going to beat it. It's just right now, just the way things are. I know I want to work on that, but maybe I just need to book an appointment with you and just get it done with.
There you go.
Yeah, I know a lot of people out there are probably thinking the same thing. It's like, you know what? We're at the, it's gonna have to get an appointment with Brenda and get this thing straightened out. So with one of the things, with past life regression,
Mhm,
I want to talk about is the theory of past lives.
mhm,
And I know you talked growing up as an atheist and trying to reconcile that. And it's interesting because, the path with Edgar Casey, because he was a born Christian
mhm,
and he was a very devout Christian person.
mhm,
And the concept of, you go to heaven, you die, you go to heaven. That's kind of it. But then when he struggled with the whole life with past regression and past life regression or past lives, anyways, in general, that he really struggled with it. So how did you come to terms with the idea of past lives? And did you experience several past lives as you did your own work and as you did your learning through hypnosis?
mhm. Yes. Okay. So I wasn't sure about this concept of past lives. I really was quite skeptical, didn't really believe in it. And I'm one of those people that need to experience it myself. So it wasn't until I had my first past life regression in a room filled with other people, expecting nothing. Um, and it was so profound. There is absolutely no way that my brain concocted that event by itself. For me to be crying in a room full of strangers, like that was something that was really, really profound. So for me, in my very first experience with a past life regression, I instantly was transported to a different time. my
Wow.
skin my skin color was different, and Michael, it dropped me in the most traumatic event, and it was
Wow.
really shocking. So I was transported to this different time, this different place. I had different color skin, different color hair, and I was holding a dead baby.
Oh, wow.
Oh my God, I was not prepared. I was not prepared. Whoever thinks of that? I didn't know, Michael, right? And so I'm holding this dead baby and he's cold and not moving. And I was dropped into that life at the very moment I realized my son had died.
Wow.
And it changed my life. It was so profound, so painful, so amazing. It really was in a very interesting experience that I never in a million years would have thought that I would have.
Wow.
So I knew something profound happened that was well beyond me. It was so emotional, I couldn't stop crying. And I really went through the experience of being the mother to that deceased child, that baby, and all the events that took place with it. So it was this transformative experience, and it happened in a room full of people in a few minutes. It wasn't a long process, and it was so jarring that I just said, I need to learn more about this.
Yeah.
If it can cause this reaction within myself, imagine how other people can go through and experience their past lives.
Yeah. So what changed about you from that experience? Like there's some people talking about profound changes in their physiology. They talk about, there could be a skin condition or a phobia or something like that. What kind of profound changes happened to you after you had that cathartic release of that emotion from that past life? Did you notice some changes within your body, how you felt, experiences, emotions, things like that?
Well, things made more sense. I always wondered why I didn't want to have kids, and I thought it really helped me understand I don't want to ever experience that pain again. I can't go through that kind of suffering again. So it really helped me understand my own personal choices that I didn't understand myself, really.
Yeah.
Uh, so it helped in that regard, but also it helped me understand how valuable the tool of past life regression is, and how it is worthy of study so that you can help people help themselves with that process as well.
Yeah, I mean, it can be so profound. I've heard so many amazing stories and crazy stories too, as well, And I think where most people would get, the idea of past lives They think that they're going to be like, some king or some, famous person in a past life. And a lot of times it's not. Sometimes you're just a working peasant person in a field somewhere, and you were killed by, an invading army or something like that. It's just nothing really exciting. It's just really traumatic, so it's like, and I think a lot of people get confused with like, oh, I was this person. It's like, you wish you were that person in that lifetime. And, I had a really interesting lady on, and I actually got her through the ARE. Her name was Joanne DiMaggio, and that's what she does. She does a lot of past life regression therapy. And she wrote this really cool book. And I don't know if you ever heard about the story of, I'm probably going to forget his name. I just know that his past lives were two famous past lives. He was Alexander the Great, and he was one of your founding forefathers of what was his name? Thomas Jefferson. So those were his two past lives. And he came back, I forget the story was, but he reincarnated just to try to get back to Edgar so he can get help. And unfortunately, the only two parents he could find to help him were these two, I guess, relations of Edgar's or friends of Edgar's or something like that. And they were just not very good people, but that was his only way back. But he never came to terms with who this person was. So he was supposed to be doing this tremendous work in this lifetime and decided not to do that. But I thought, what a profound thing. First of all, getting a reading from Edgar Casey, of course, that'd be really cool. It'd be super cool. And then secondly, to find out that, oh, by the way, you were Alexander the Great and Thomas Jefferson's two of like these really big, profound people in history. And I know she was telling me the story. I think she wrote a book on it. And I really apologize, Joanne, if you're listening to this, that I didn't do a little more, if I couldn't remember the whole story on that. But I just think how profound that would be to know that type of knowledge, that this is what it was. And then I know from my understanding that a lot of people were upset that they found out about this guy's past life reading and he didn't do anything with this lifetime. Like he just said, you know what, I'm checking out, I'm done. I'm not going to be this person who I should be. And he just checked out. Have you noticed anything in past lives where somebody was pseudo famous maybe in a past life?
Not that really comes to mind. I've had people think they were someone, Napoleon the Great, like somebody, but they usually find out otherwise. They weren't Napoleon. They were, his assistants, lackey that would run errands, something like that. So Napoleon was connected to it, perhaps, but not the main character.
Not the main character, yeah.
Yeah, so when you look at how many famous people there are compared to how many souls on the planet there are, I found a lot more people were farmers in their past lives.
Yeah, I mean, I've had one where I was like a nun. And I was like, I've been a nun and a priest several lifetimes. So there's something about spirituality and God, I guess I need to get through, but I didn't become a priest in this one. And it's interesting. I mean, I kind of hate the Catholic Church anyways. So I was like, okay, this is really interesting. But the fact that I was a nun, and then one of the she told me was, and I kind of thought it was very similar to your idea where I had a child at that time. And as I'm an adult, I never wanted to have kids. I never had the inkling to have kids, never wanted to have a family. I just thought, no, that's not for me. It never was for me. But then she gave me this past life reading about it. And she said you basically had to give up you had to give up your child for some reason because you were unwed mother back then and it was shunned upon. And then I guess I had to move into a nunnery and then that's what it was. And I was like, oh, Jesus, this is really crazy. And then I found out later another one and I was in a priesthood and I was like, oh, geez, what's with this deal with the whole church thing going on here? So, but yeah, but also it really gave me the profound sense like, okay, that makes sense about not having the children and wanting to have the children, but why would you want to go through that pain? And then the idea with the church and why I wasn't really happy with the church and why, I've always struggled with, Christianity in general, but just Roman Catholicism, I guess, would be the more correct way of doing it. I hated going to church. I just like it. Just every time I walked into a church, it's like, oh, just something about it. But now I kind of understand and have come to terms with it. It doesn't really bother me as much, but yeah, I just find it so fascinating to do that. Like, I mean, just the research and understanding about past lives and how they affect us, even from the emotional and mental aspect of it. But from the physiological changes too that can happen within a body, if somebody has like a rash or an illness, because I know Edgar talked about that too as well. Somebody would come in to her for reading for a medical issue, and he would say, basically, this is because you abused the body in a past life.
Yes, yes, that happens. It really happens. We carry things over. And so I really tend to think, Michael, that we have one life and many chapters. You have the book of Michael, right? This is the book of all your lives. And as you go through chapter by chapter, it makes the full story. So you had one chapter as a nun, another chapter as a priest, another chapter in a Western town somewhere. But you're still the same soul. And these are all just experiences to enrich in you and to help you develop into yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was really just, I was shocked, but I wasn't surprised at the same time. And really gave me a really good understanding of, who I was and a lot of the things that I did. But it's interesting now, as I do more work, I'm finding that I'm seeing more past lives show up now as I do a deeper meditation, and I'm just seeing some crazy ass shit that I was like, yeah, I don't know about that, but it just seems so vivid. And it's like, it's so hard to dismiss it. Do you find that you've kind of had that similar experiences as you evolve and do more meditations, that all of a sudden things are starting to pop through your own, conscious mind, and you're seeing, oh, this is a crazy lifetime?
Sometimes I will do it on purpose, Michael, where
Oh,
I
okay.
will enter the state of self-hypnosis for the purpose of investigating the origin of an unwanted emotion, to where I want to find out where this came from and how I can clear it, how I can heal it. So, and spontaneously, some things are coming up for people to heal the trauma. Even if they don't really understand where it's from, it's time for this whole planet to heal. We are all here to elevate, to evolve. And it means letting go of some trauma, some pain, some suffering that we had in a previous lifetime, because those things echo through our bodies. So that's why you can heal a rash or have this physical experience after a past life regression that changes your physical health. And I find that more and more people they're doing their inner work, and it is coming to the surface spontaneously at times. So whether or not it is a valid, true past life or just a symbolic representation, it still can offer healing. And I think that's the key purpose of it. If your brain needs some sort of a story to tell the story of your healing, of why it occurred and what you're trying to heal, I think that's really, really quite beneficial.
Wow, that's pretty profound. Like, it's amazing how like the subconscious mind will use stuff, like you said, it could be a genuine past life, or it's like you said, the story to help you heal that particular thing, because you may have this traumatic event that's so traumatic that you can't relive it in through the lens of what you're seeing now, but you have to, have like somebody edit it in your subconscious mind that makes kind of sense, and maybe be using part of the things that you've seen in this lifetime, like, obviously like a Western or something like that, that your subconscious mind is using that as a tool to help alleviate the trauma that you maybe faced in this lifetime because it was so profound, and using that tool. So that's why I find the mind so amazing that way, because it'll just use little pieces and put together something just in order for you to not be severely traumatized, especially when it comes to like abuse cases. Like, I've heard so many crazy stories when it comes to abuse, that it'd be so traumatic for the person, the victim, to relive the abuse of their either parent or neighbor or wherever the person was. It's just too raw and too I wouldn't say dangerous, but just too over the edge. But they've just used this mind will use their subconscious mind to reshape that through an imagery of something else to produce the same effect without witnessing that same event. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, that's right. It is symbology. So images are the language of the subconscious mind. So, even when you hear the word apple, it probably pops up an image of an apple, not the word A-P-P-L-E. So you would have an image of something, and then you have an emotional connection to it, a reaction to it. So yes, quite often the subconscious mind will deliver you information that you can digest, something to help you shift and move through that trauma, through that abuse in a safe way where you're not triggered or stuck in fight or flight, trying to fight your way out of a memory, fight your way out of a flashback. It's something that is softer and easier for the person to be able to transition through that healing.
Yeah. Wow. Now, do you find that when people start doing this work that their dreams become more vivid? And then do you find that sometimes you actually help people, with their dreams, because you're in that dream state, the subconscious mind is coming up and you're rectifying certain things that are going throughout the day. Do you guide people through some of their dreams and help them with the imagery and kind of, get them through that process?
Yes, yes. And I even use dreams and post-hypnotic suggestions in quite a few of my sessions. So for example, if somebody is working on releasing fear, let's say they have an anxiety about driving, then in their dreams, I will actually use a post-hypnotic suggestion that their dreams will be venting out driving anxiety to help organize their thoughts and release some of those intense emotions. So we do work with the dream state as they go through hypnotherapy.
Wow,
Mhm.
that's so profound because you're in that dream state anyway, which is basically hypnotherapy from what I understand anyways, right? You're in that kind of that theta brainwave state where you're in between worlds, whatever, you're more subconscious mind than conscious mind. And that's where you have that direct connection from the subconscious to the higher consciousness to the super consciousness. And you're in that waning and waxing and waning type phase where you're close and then you move up and then you back down again, you move up and back down again. That's just so fantastic, fascinating. Now, could you hypnotize yourself to become happy?
Oh, good question. I think so. I've hypnotized myself to heal my eyesight. So I haven't worn reading glasses for over a year, about a year and a half.
Wow.
Yeah, so you can use it for specific purposes. So I've hypnotized myself for emergency hypnosis. I broke my wrist in an accident, and I used hypnosis to disconnect from the pain. So even while I went to the emergency room and they reset the bones, I felt nothing. No
Wow.
discomfort. So you can use it in so many different ways. So not that it necessarily made me happy, but I was quite comfortable in the emergency room. The doctors kept saying, okay, we need to know what drugs you took. we need to know. And then they asked the person that brought me in, like, okay, what is she on? Because she should be crying right now. And the nurses would come by and look at me and say, you're not acting normal. And so in that way, I was quite happy disconnecting, chit-chatting with the doctors, even though they were a little bit bewildered. And I even went through surgery for that injury. And I had hardware installed inside of my wrist. And the only time it hurt, Michael, was 3 weeks after surgery, when I went in to see the surgeon for the checkup to make sure everything's good. And he popped up this X-ray, and on the X-ray was all the hardware. It had pins and a plate, and I was like, oh, this is so sadistic. I can't believe you did this to me, right? And as soon as I saw that X-ray, man, did it start throbbing. And my wrist was just pounding for 3 days. I couldn't get a hold of it. I could not get a hold of it with hypnosis. I had to take regular drugs, medication. And it was the image of seeing that X-ray. I saw, oh my gosh, this should hurt. And boy, did it start hurting.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing how the mind works. Like, just the subtlest little thing can trigger that response. And
Mhm.
just seeing that, the visual. And I know so many people talk about, in their on their healing journey, that they disassociate with everything that could trigger them, any thoughts,
Yes.
any visual stuff. They totally just disconnect themselves from television, anything that would give them certain things, especially when it comes to like a really serious diagnosis, like saying, nope, I'm not listening to that, in a way of disassociating yourself. So you're not constantly triggering and thinking about the worst case scenario, because it's amazing how the doctors would love to awfulize, certain things in a situation that you should be doing this, you should be feeling this, but because they're just telling you, basically they're trying to program you that you should be feeling sick, or why you should be feeling this. But if you don't let it enter your mind, you really won't be feeling sick. You just be literally wondering, what drugs are you on?
Yes. And this is something, as I went through that experience, I said, people in the medical field really should pay attention to how they speak. So they go, how bad is your pain? How bad is your pain? Right? They
Yeah.
don't say, how comfortable are you? So it's the same question. One has a much different tone to it. So if you're talking about bad pain compared to how comfortable are you and what can we do to help you be more comfortable, there's a very big difference in how you approach both of those ideas.
I love that idea. It makes so much sense. Like, and it really alleviates that. And it's just, I think something that we need to be taught that how to speak, because we always we learn these sort of things. How's your pain? How's your pain? Always talk about pain, like how comfortable you are. It's always about your pain. How you feeling? What's your pain? What's your pain
How
at?
bad is it?
How bad is it? Yeah. How bad is it?
Yes.
How really bad is it? Yeah. So we're constantly using those words and stuff like that. So, wow. Now, are you teaching hypnotherapy at this time?
I'll do classes occasionally. I love teaching. I love connecting with people. So it's something that I don't have any classes currently, but it is something that I do love to connect with people. And I love teaching. So I do plan on having that in my life whenever the time is right.
Wow. Yeah. I think you'd be such a fabulous teacher on that. Just to let you know, I think you would be fantastic at that. So, that being said, Brenda, so if people are looking for your services, they want to have some hypnotherapy. Now, hypnotherapy can be done through Zoom, correct? I take it?
Yes. I don't do past life regression except in person.
Okay.
So that is something that is quite special, and I want to make sure I'm hands-on and right there with the person. But yes, hypnotherapy is available by telephone and over Zoom, and they can just book on my website at brendahall.ca.
Perfect. And I'll have Brenda's information in the podcast description. So whether you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple, Anchor FM, Google Podcasts, and all the rest of them there, I'll have all that information. You just got to scroll down through the description. Always have all my guest information there. So if you've been interested in hypnotherapy, you're looking for a reading, or you just want to connect and say, hey, you know what, you can go onto the Facebook page too as well, and you can connect and find out all the information like I do with all my guests. And I am so happy that we had this conversation. And I love the work that you do. I love your spirit. I think you're, a shining gift out there to all humanity. So I really appreciate you being on the show today, Brenda.
Well, thank you, Michael, for having me. Thank you for having your show. Thank you for talking to people. Thank you for bringing it out and really sharing with others what is possible, because it is time for people to take accountability for their own well-being, to turn inward and really help themselves learn how to feel good in this lifetime.
Yeah, I so appreciate that. I really love that idea of self-empowerment. I'm all about self-empowerment. So that is fantastic. And that being said, I'm just going to close off the podcast. This has been the Metaphysical Mentor Podcast with Michael Philpott. Thank you so much for joining me, and goodbye for now.